What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the OTO podcast with my co-host Bannon Crowley from Next Man Up MMA. He can shout himself out now.
Shout out Next Man Up MMA. I'm Bannon Crowley from it. We got a lot to talk about. There's no pay-per-view next month, so we took, or this month, I guess it's already September. So we took a little bit of a break. So we're gonna talk about the last pay-per-view and the last fight card that we just saw over the weekend in Paris. And then we'll talk about the next two fight nights and UFC 320 and maybe potentially touch on some other things, including the UFC White House card, and maybe a few other things we can talk about a little bit later. But starting off with UFC 319, overall, this card was pretty exciting. You know, we saw back-to-back KOs um, with that spinning elbow. So that was pretty exciting to watch. And Kamzat edged out DDP in the final, 47 to 46 in my book. And then Tim Elliott went out and ended Kai Asakura's career. MVP went out there with his KSI style and did pretty well as well. So we got a lot to talk about. We can start off, might as well start off with the main event, I guess, with Khamzat Chimaev defeating DDP. Would you say that with that performance, which overall was pretty decent, I would say, in my opinion, would you say that Khamzat is the best pound for pound in the UFC right now?
No, definitely not. Nothing against Kamaev. He's getting up there for sure, but I mean, if you got Ilya, I think Ilya is without a doubt number one in the UFC for sure. But that was extremely impressive from Kamaev. I personally thought DDP was a pound for pound top three guy before that fight. I really think he was that good. He was beating great names and on the steps to greatness, and Kamaev definitely knocked him up there. I have Kamaev like top five, six, seven, maybe. DDP right around there too. But
Where would you have? Okay,
yeah,
let's actually go through this, right? So number one, I think we both have Ilya, right?
yep,
I have Islam at two. Would you agree
yep,
with that?
yep, I do too.
Third, I would have Marab.
See, this is where I should have Marab here, but I've been like moving him up,
Hmm.
and I feel like people don't like this, but I got Tom Aspinall at three right now. The way no one is able to get out of the first round with him. I'll stand by it. He's gonna beat Gon, and it's gonna prove my point even further. But there's not the thing with Marab. Yeah, he has good resume, whatever. But the decision, a lot of decisions, and I'm talking pound for pound greatness. Aspinall has been flatlining everyone. He hasn't even seen the second round, and who knows for how long. I think he would have killed John Jones and confirmed it even more. But I'm standing by it.
Yeah, but I think the difference here between Marab is that pound for pound, he's beating guys that pound for pound are so much better than the people that Aspinall is beating. If Aspinall was in a division that was as competitive, which isn't his fault, I mean, it's not his fault that every single heavyweight is terrible and Tai Tuivasa is a top 10 ranked guy. If Tai Tuivasa had the same skill set and he was in bantamweight, I don't even think he would be in the PFL. That's how bad he is. Um, so okay, we'll move on to number four. I have Marab at three. I would probably have Pantoja at four. Would you have Kamzat here or
I have Marab at four.
okay? And then five.
Um,
This is where I this is
I
where
picked
I
Toad.
might have Kamzat. This is where it gets interesting because it's either Kamzat, Magomed, Volk, JDM, Aspinall. It's kind of the mix of all those guys there.
Yeah, they're up there. I have for sure Pantoja, the most overhated, underrated, not talked about champion. He's been defending his belt for a while. He's been so dominant. Pantoja is I think tier one is like Ilya, tier two is Islam, and then tier three is like Aspinall, Merab, Pantoja. And I think they're all right there. But I have Pantoja at five. He's so underrated, not talked about enough, honestly.
Yeah, I would probably have. I think I would have Kamza around like probably 5 or 6 because I still think Ilya, Islam, Marab, Pantoja are all above him. Current day Volk, if we're talking about Volk before, then obviously he would be above him, like pound for pound Volk. But
Yeah.
current day Volk, I mean, we can talk about it a little bit later. I don't know if he's even going to win his next fight. Magomed, I would say Khamzat's better than current Magomed, Volk, JDM, and Tom Aspinall. So I would probably have him around 5. UFC has him at 4. The only thing I would change is I would put Pantoja at 4 and then have Khamzat at 5, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I honestly don't have Volk, and I have Volk, Holloway, and Armin in my kind of honorable mention category. They're like all tied for 11. Maybe someone like I was gonna say Strickland, but not really. But I'd say those three guys are like knocking on the door, waiting for somebody to lose. Which, if you look at 320, 321, 322, there's gonna be a lot of movement in the pound for pound rankings. But yeah, I have DDP at 7 now, Ankalaev at 8, Pereira at 9, and JDM at 10.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of guys. I know you redacted your statement on Sean Strickland, but I think there's a lot of guys here that would be above him. Max Holloway, Bilal, Armin, Shavkat. I would probably take all above.
Yeah.
And Sean Strickland's probably never going to fight again at this point because he got
Sure.
kicked out of his anger management class. But next for Kamzat, I mean, based on what we just saw, I think we can talk about it a little bit. Might as well just bring this fight in. Imavov goes out and beats Kyle Barhalio this past weekend, and is the number one contender now. I think that would definitely be the next fight to have for Kamza. And I think it's honestly interesting because Nasruddin, I know some people don't really like him. Maybe they don't like his style as much, but I think his style, he's a sniper. He takes his shots, so I think it would be interesting to see how he goes up against Kamzat. And I think the only way to beat Kamzat is what we've seen before with a wrestler. And if his ego gets too big, the same thing we saw with Aljo and Sean O'Malley, where Aljo's ego was too big, he decided to stand with him. Maybe that happens to Kamzat and he decides to stand with someone. Because I honestly, if he decides to wrestle everyone for the rest of his career, I honestly don't know who would beat him at this point.
Yeah, it's Imavov is one of those guys that I'm not a fan of him. I just don't really get why people don't like him though. He has a great style. Ever since Strickland beat him, however many 3 years ago, the Cannonier fight was a banger. He destroyed Izzy, sent him into retirement home. Brendan Allen, like I think that was a easy pick over Barajo, which is someone I've never been a huge fan of. Not just saying that after he loses, but the future of middleweight is very exciting, and I pray that Chimaev is active as champ because if he is, we're gonna have a division that's kind of been in a weird spot thanks to Sean Strickland, where him beating Izzy kind of threw the whole thing out if we're being honest, and then DDP they had those weird fights together, so. I'm very excited for the contenders here if Chimaev is active, where I want Imavov next right away. And then RDR versus Fluffy, boom, that's another title contending fight. I'm a fan of both of those guys. But Chimaev looks so dominant against DDP, he's so big. But Imavov is a well-rounded guy that I think I'm gonna throw this out there. I think the second best guy in the division to take on Chimaev is gonna be Fluffy Hernandez. I've always thought I would still say it. I think he might be the most underrated guy in the UFC. After his last fight, he's getting a lot more respect and recognition, but he has the cardio, the striking, incredible grappling. Like he really doesn't have a hole in his game, and he just keeps going, and by the fourth, fifth round, like who knows where you're gonna be at, and he'll be perfectly fine. So I think Fluffy, RDR, and Imavov are the only guys that really have a chance here against Chimaev.
Yeah, I mean, Fluffy is on an 8 fight winning streak. The last time he lost was against the GOAT, Kevin Holland. He got knocked out. So, I mean, realistically, when you look at that, an 8 fight winning streak in this division in this current day is pretty good. So I wouldn't be against that. I know a lot of people have been talking about that. Also, RDR is in the mix. Sean Strickland, Izzy, DDP, all in that top 5. Probably aren't going to be the next title challenger. So I would be very surprised to see one of them. Who knows what's next for Izzy? He said him and Sean Strickland can fight. That's fine. I really don't care too much about that. If they want to fight each other, they can do that. Like you said before, I think Sean Strickland beating Izzy kind of ruin the division for a little bit because I think if Izzy beat him, I don't think Sean Strickland gets another title chance. And I think DDP versus Izzy, I'm still taking DDP over Izzy. I know it's easy to say once he beat him, but I still do think that no matter what, DDP was going to beat him, and I was hoping to see that fight after the Strickland fight. So I don't know. I think Kamza, a lot of people have been saying he's going to be champion for the past 3 years, it seems like, and he finally went through and got the belt. So it is interesting to see. But next up, in a little bit of a different division here, Lerone Murphy, who I've always been a big fan of. I know a lot of people don't really like him as much. They kind of said he was boring, which I could see after his past few performances. But after this one, he went out there, proved everyone wrong with a fantastic KO. And the beginning of that fight, I mean, when I was watching that, those first few minutes when Pico was really pressuring him, I thought that Pico was going to run through him. And watching interviews after, Murphy said, he wasn't even sure what was going to happen because taking that on short notice, I know a lot of people say that maybe he shouldn't get a title shot next versus Volk. When he stepped in and fought an unranked guy making his UFC debut. But we also have to remember that Pico was supposed to be fighting against Movzar, and the winner would have got the number one contender fight if Pico went out there and won that fight. So, I mean, I think you still have to give the same sentiment here, and I honestly think with Movzar pulling out, Lerone Murphy should go in and get that championship fight because I don't want it to be Yair Rodriguez.
Yeah, I do agree. And before we were moving on, I was gonna say we should get into the DDP Kamaya fight more, but there's really nothing to say. Like I think we kind of summed it up. Kamaya was just bigger, better. DDP was blocking all the shots with the back of his head.
Yeah.
So I know
Yeah.
you might be a little hurt about that still, even though it has been a while.
He
But
he got him on that day.
he
We
did.
all lose once in a while.
Every dog has its day.
Yeah, but we'll be back just like Sean O'Malley against
There you
Marab
go.
3. Just wait for that one.
There you go. But yeah, going back to featherweight, I had Murphy in the fight, but I was very iffy on that. Pico is very good. He's one of those guys where he's a gold glove boxer. He's a like world championship level wrestler. He's great at like he's a all well-rounded fighter. He's young and he just hasn't there's one more thing that he's missing. And in my opinion, that's just like fight IQ that it's that piece that really brings you from being good to being a champion. And he was working. Murphy's one of the smartest fighters in the UFC, and I think that was the main gap there between Pico and Murphy, where Murphy is. I'm one of those guys. I don't really love Murphy because he's a point fighter. There's a lot of guys like that, like Sean Strickland. So I don't really like those type of fighters, but that looked way different. That elbow is crazy. And Pico has the same problem his whole career where he looks great on paper and his game plan was working. He was waiting for the takedowns, but he was moving in with like simple like it just face to face, just moving in, closing the distance. Then he was gonna go for takedowns and try and mix it up on Murphy. But that doesn't work when you don't lead with a jab. There's nothing putting you to close the distance. Murphy was watching Pico just kind of like shuffling at him right in front of him. So he was timing up that elbow probably the entire fight, waiting for that to land. So you can't really argue with that. That was an incredible finish. Pico should be out like at least a year after that. Work on the fight
Yeah.
IQ stuff. Maybe change teams, change camps. I'm not really sure where he is now, but go somewhere that really drills like fight IQ, how to win fights instead of just kind of going out there like a Sean Strickland style and just kind of trying to do whatever you want. But when it comes to Volk, I was very excited to be honest that Vlaev got the title shot, however many months ago that was, because Vlaev I think is the only title worthy contender that wasn't gonna knock Volk out. I think Volk should have retired on top once he won that belt. That was a banger against Lopez. But we look at Murphy, I mean, even guys like Gene Silva, if he beats Lopez, like I think they're all starching Volk bad and that's gonna end Volk's career anyway. So if Live would be that one guy that Volk could test that grappling defense that he did against Islam at his own weight class, that's a winnable fight for Volk. But I think Murphy 100% earned the title shot now. If live, like, I'm totally in favor of punishing guys like, oh, you're not gonna fight, you're gonna miss weight. All right, we're not giving you a title shot. People call Dana petty for that. At the end of the day, it's a business, and if guys aren't gonna be good employees, you can't really reward them for that. So I'm okay with Murphy getting the shot, but I think Murphy, I think it's just gonna be if he fights Volk tomorrow, it's a kind of 50-45 type thing. Like I think Murphy's just gonna point fight basically, and Volk is not gonna have an answer. And if he tries to mix it up or do something crazy, he might get hit with that little elbow on the face or something. But I don't know. It's tough road ahead for Volk.
Yeah, I mean, if I think they are fighting by the end of this year, it seems like. And I think unless something drastically changes, I think I am going to take Murphy, like you said. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing that fight and Volk is on the ground by the end of that fight. Mavzar, probably one of the better guys, if not the best contender when we're talking about skill wise right now. But definitely a point fighter. I mean, look at his whole UFC career. It's unanimous decision in every fight except one where he got a split decision. You know, just 3 rounds and just going out there and trying to win, but not really trying to get the finish in most of those fights. And honestly, I thought Aljo beat him in the last fight. Um, but that was what, almost a year ago now at this point. So I do think that Lerone Murphy has gone out and done enough. I mean, since May 6th, 2023, Mavzar has 3 wins. And since then, we're talking about that same time in March, just 2 months before that. Since then, we've seen 6 wins by Lerone Murphy. He's stepped up every single time. He has double the amount of wins in almost the same exact time, and he's been perfect so far. So I do think that he deserves the title shot, and I do think that he is going to be the next champion by the end of this year.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair to say. I mean, featherweight's kind of Volk was a weird one beating Lopez, where I feel like the script almost was saying like, oh, either Volk is like he gets that belt back and he retires, or Lopez becomes that new prospect to win the belt. But maybe skipping around here, but if we're talking about Lopez, might as well bring up Lopez versus Gene Silva at Noche. Not a pay-per-view, but it is a fight overall. It's a whatever,
Hmm.
not a numbered event either. It's something. Not a great
Hmm.
card, but Gene Silva versus Diego Lopez. I'm taking Silva within two to knock out Lopez. That's my, I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but I think Silva is the best prospect in the UFC. I'll say that he's a future champ. His striking is so smart, so powerful that I just think he's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it right now, it looks like Silva's a minus 275 favorite. So a pretty big favorite. And I mean, this is a massive point in Diego Lopez's career, right? Gene Silva is ranked 10th. I think we can both agree that he should be a lot higher than that. Like prospect talent wise, he could knock out almost anyone in this division. So I do think obviously he should be higher than that. Like if he fights Aljo, I think he could beat Aljo. I think he could beat Arnold Allen. I think he could beat Brian Ortega. I think he could beat Josh Emmett. I think he could beat almost anyone above him. So if Diego Lopez loses this, and he had that opportunity to fight for the belt and then lost that and then loses to Gene Silva, then I think it would be very interesting to see what happens after this. So I don't know. I mean, I haven't really decided who I think is going to win this fight. I mean, odds wise, it seems like Silva is a pretty big favorite, but I am definitely going to take the under no matter what.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that Volk fight showed it. Even when he fought Ortega at the Sphere, like Lopez is this killer be killed. And I believe he might have was he our prospect of the year? Was he close to that?
He was our next man up 2 years ago when he was unranked.
Okay. Okay. So I mean, we've definitely been backing him. Like I do love him, but it's like the same reason why he got knocked down against Volk, and like they knocked each other down, but Volk ended up winning the fight. So I think Silva's just like a freight train, and that's a tough fight. But Lopez is he's one of the more exciting fighters in the UFC for sure. But we're gonna go all the way back. We had Lerone Murphy beating Pico with a spinning elbow. and another one with Carlos Prates, another fighting nerd there, just like Silva, beating Jeff Neal with another crazy elbow of his own. And how do you think Prates matches up where he has always been, they fight when the fighting nerds took over, they get all the attention, all the glory, they're all undefeated, they're the best. He almost beat Gary, but he didn't get the job done. So where do you think Prates stands in the division overall? He has Leon coming up. Do you think he's just like Silva? Is he title worthy, or is he kind of like Rufy or Kyle, where he's like kind of iffy on the edge there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is going to be a little interesting. Because like we just saw, there's really only one fighting nerd left that's undefeated now. And I do think that he's probably the second best at this point. I did think Kyle was gonna win. I did have him winning. Obviously he did not win that fight. But overall, I I don't know. I think Leon Edwards is not very good. I think we can both agree on that overall. I do think that, in my opinion, that last fight against Gary, he did have him towards the last, definitely the last round, the fifth round. The fourth round, I think was a lot closer. And I think Gary definitely went out there and those first three rounds when he couldn't get that finish, he kind of gassed out a little bit. Prates did definitely have a very good performance, so I'm not going to knock him too much there. I'm not really sure if he's a title contender. I think he can work his way up and potentially move up, but I mean, it's going to be really hard because I don't see him beating JDM. I honestly don't really see anyone at this point right now beating JDM. I think Shavkat would be interesting, but who knows if he's even going to ever fight at this point. And I do think Ian Gary is in a different tier than Carlos is right now. Like I really have Ian Gary up there as like contender slash future champion. And I think Prates is kind of just a little rank below. So I'd have to see him go out there. And as much as Leon Edwards, was a former champion, defended the belt, if he beats him, obviously he would move up to be number four. But I wouldn't have him at four and keep Ian Gary at six. So that's why this division just very interesting. I think with a win, that would be really big for his career, but you can't move him above Ian Gary when Ian Gary went out and beat him before. So it is very backlogged at the top. Because Bilal is still the number one contender. I don't know who knows what's going to happen with Bilal in the future. Like, how many more fights realistically does he have in his career? So I don't know. I think Prates probably could go out there and beat Leon Edwards because I don't think Leon Edwards is that good.
Yeah, Paul Craig said it best last weekend. It's a sport where the young eat the old, and Leon is old. I don't know how many times we talked about it at welterweight. The old core is just collapsing fast, very fast. The young guys are taking over, and that Ian Gary's my favorite welterweight for sure. JDM's up there too, but that Protes fight, anyone can admit, like almost any other guy would have finished Ian Gary there after he was
Hmm.
hurt, obviously. But Ian Gary was crawling around like a dog, and Protes was kind of toying with him and kind of lost that fight for himself. So that it kind of shows the levels to Protes, and I think he is very, very good. But the division as a whole, I mean, when Usman beat Buckley, like that was kind of crazy. But Usman's not a he's not getting the belt again. It's just not happening. His knees won't get that far. Usman has like maybe what one fight left, maybe two, and
Yeah.
that would probably he takes like 9 to 12 months off now. So I think Leon, just like Izzy, his style is just not built for old age. Like when you're a technical, athletic point fighter, there's a time when your reflexes disappear and the young guys are just faster or quicker than you. So there's nothing you can do about it except for switch your styles. And we saw Leon against Sean Brady where he got dominated, and then he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna grapple here" in the last second of the fight, and then he got smoked for that. So I don't think Leon has a chance. I'm not sure if Prates is gonna KO him, but I just don't. I really cannot see Leon winning that fight after losing to Sean, getting dominated to Sean Brady. By the way, I think Prates gets the for sure gets the win there. But when you look at JDM, I'm not sure how you feel, but when I think of the best boxers in the UFC, I think of Ilya, and then I think of JDM, and then I think of Holloway. Legit think pure boxing wise, he is in that top core of the best boxers in the UFC right now. Against Bilal, his boxing was incredible. Like he looks like an actual boxer, and there Ilya and Max are the only other guys like that where the combos they're doing, the movement, it's all incredible. So. It's a tough division for Protest for sure, but I think he definitely has Leon here.
Yeah, I think in one of our first episodes back when Leon was the champion after somehow, I mean, one more round and we could be in the good timeline where Usman just retired as champion. But JDM was my guy, who I thought honestly could become the champion in this division. And he took some time off, obviously, with his injury. I think you could argue that he's the best boxer in the UFC. I think the interesting part, obviously, Ilya pound for pound, and honestly, almost overall, is probably the strongest hitter in all of the UFC. But I think technical ability, JDM's really the only guy that targets the body as much as he does. Like you watch his fights when he was going through with Bilal, he was just like that was a fantastic boxing clinic overall. He's really one of the only guys, like I said, that targets the body with those body shots and doesn't just kick. I mean, he goes in there and gets hooks and jabs, and he just absolutely dismantles you over the 5 rounds. So I think you definitely could argue that he is the best boxer overall. Obviously, Ilya is a lot stronger with that one punch power, but I think JDM technically is probably the best boxer. I think next, if Prates beats Leon Edwards, um, I want to see him go up against a guy like Michael Morales. I want to see like a true test at that point because Leon Edwards is still good, but I would want to see him go up against another prospect like that and then hopefully move guys up in the rankings because I don't know. It's Shavkat's next for the belt um, after Islam allegedly, but who knows if Shavkat's going to be back after that. So I don't know what's really going to happen at the top of this division. Sean Brady, I think at this point deserves a title shot more than Shavkat, which may be controversial, but I mean, he's actually gone out there and fought more recently and done more.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. Shavkat's kind of been his own version of the Kamaev boogeyman, where he beats people up bad and then just doesn't like really do anything else. Like he's just kind of there, and the fans kind of relying on the fans to be like, "Oh, this guy's a boogeyman. Like he's gonna beat the champ." So if he does fight JDM, who knows? He could have a master class, and he does win that. But I do agree. If you're gonna fight once a year, like it's really hard to give you fights, especially to become the champion. Another reason I love Ian Gary is he take fights on short notice. He doesn't care. He's always the backup fighter. Um, and if he beat Shafkat, he'd probably be fighting for the belt already. But what can you do? And then I guess moving on to Michael Venom Page, MVP, beating Jared Cannonier. Super impressive fight for MVP. And before we get into the fight itself, I would like to say he is already a top 10 middleweight, and I had this kind of hot take. I was talking to a buddy about it. I think with his age, the way he came over and has been lighting up like Shara Bullock, Kevin Holland, like Ian Gary, even I know he lost, but he's been the fastest striker out of everyone he's fought against, especially Cannonier. I would say in this division with all these top contenders, you give him a massive fight. I'm talking someone at the top of the rankings like Izzy or Sean Strickland. You give him a big boost because he's getting up there in age. He doesn't have that many fights left. And you give him a real test. If he loses, he can be the rest of his career as a bottom of the ranking gatekeeper. But if he wins that though, and his striking is that good, you fast track him toward the title shot before he's too old. So that might be a hot take. But I guess really quick in the fight itself, I think I love Cannonier, one of my favorite fighters ever. But that was just so predictable. MVP is so fast. Cannonier is so old and slow now. He has grit. He has a great heart. But that was a little predictable. The MVP was just gonna piece him up like that, which he did. And I'm not really worried about the lack of finishes because, frankly, MVP can finish most fighters whenever he wants to, but he'd rather kind of emote on them mid-fight.
Yeah, and I mean, you said give him a big fight. Might as well just give him Izzy at this point. I think for both of those guys, They don't have very many fights left. And him versus Izzy, I think would be very entertaining. The build up to that, the in Octagon fighting with both of them just emoting the whole time, which could lead to it being kind of just
Romero, Izzy.
yeah, that's what I've been people have been saying to stay away from that. You know, we might just see them both doing emotes the whole time and not actually hitting each other. But I do think it would be a fun fight to see because besides that, I mean, if you want to give him a big fight, who do you give him? Like, would you give him you can't I don't think he fights DDP next. I don't know who I think DDP probably has to fight RDR next at this point if Nasruddin is next. Um I do you give him Sean Strickland? I think MVP would probably
I think he
knock
beat
up.
Strickland.
I think he would knock up Sean Strickland.
Whoa. I mean, that's harsh usage there, but well, actually, I was thinking this. I think Sean Strickland would have no idea what to do. Like he'd be standing there like kind of sparring, and MVP would just be like doing the KSI move on him, and then just
Yeah.
fucking dancing, oh, and then dancing back to the cage, and then kind of moving back in. And I think he would just piece up Strickland like the entire fight.
I I think Sean Strickland would probably say some things to him during the fight,
Probably
which could result in
another
probably
suspension.
yeah, maybe another suspension. So that might not be good for him. But I think mentally, if he fought Sean Strickland and he was doing that and Strickland couldn't hit him, I think that would make it also very entertaining because I think Strickland might just crash out at that point and he might actually try to fight him.
That's that's not a bad idea, and that would be a banger.
Be like Sneeko.
Yeah, he would actually take out his anger for once. That would be very exciting. But moving on to the last fight on the main card of 319, we saw Tim Elliott destroy Kaya Sakura. Uh, took all of his aura away, kind of crazy. He was doing like emotes in there. He was like flowing, weirdest, I mean, style I've seen in a while. But he got the job done. And Kaya Sakura, I was so excited when he signed to the UFC. I thought he had a chance to beat Pantoja. Not saying I believe I picked Pantoja, but I'm pretty sure I was like, Kai could pull one out here. He's such an exciting striker, flying knees. I thought no way Tim Elliott would beat him, and Tim Elliott made light work of him. Asakura, he needs a name that I thought of myself was Horiguchi, which is someone that I believe fought DJ for the belt a few years ago. UFC signed him back after being a UFC vet like a while ago. Another Japanese fellow countryman, they could fight maybe in a Japanese fight night. Could be two unranked guys, but someone that's not going to choke him out right away would be a huge draw in Japan, but Kai clearly needs to learn how to grapple. I'm sick. He had the aura, he lost it all. He doesn't have it anymore. And I'm kind of the Pantoja one I was okay with. Like you're fighting champ, whatever. But like Tim Elliott, you're gonna let him like destroy. Like he looked like he had no idea what to do against Tim Elliott. So not a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, he can't fight anyone that knows how to wrestle at this point. Like you can't give him anyone that can even like shoot for a takedown. Um, I mean, we came on here and we were hoping that he beat Pantoja so we could see Tatsuro Taira versus him for the belt, and we saw how that went. So, I mean, I think Taira still wants to fight him, but obviously that would be probably the biggest risk for him, even though I think he would beat him. He could just wrestle him the whole time and he wouldn't know what to do. Um, but that would just be a risk to be number five and fight an unranked guy who's 0-2. I don't know what you do with him at this point. Maybe send him back down um, to the G League, put him on the contender series or something. But I mean, Tim Elliott, yeah, he's ranked in the top 10, but realistically, did we expect Tim Elliott to go out there and choke out Kai Sakura? I don't really think so at this point, especially not at 38 years old. So I don't know. I don't. What's next for him? Maybe death sentence. Not the death sentence, but the fighter.
The fight and not the
Yeah,
penalty.
no, not the penalty.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at flyweight as a whole, I love where it is right now, Tetsuro Taira included. But I mean, hey, if we're gonna see a Joshua Van Pantoja fight, if we're gonna see a Pantoja Marab super fight, in a few months. Even Marab probably would take that like a week after he kills Sandhagen. We'll get into that. But there's a lot of great names at flyweight, and it's in a good spot. And like Asakura was just set up for that. One guy we could maybe see is Manel Kopp, is someone who we fought in Ryzen in Japan. Comes back, fights him here. Sadly, I think he doesn't even deserve. If he goes 0-3, I like to make fun of Michael Chandler for being like what 2-5 now, 2-6. But
Hmm.
if you're gonna be 0-3, I just like if he wasn't, if he was like not from Japan, not a former Ryzen like star, like he'd probably be getting cut already. So it's
Yeah.
definitely a tough spot for him.
Yeah. And I mean, even the difference with Michael Chandler, like obviously he went out there and he got a win in the first fight. And then after that, fighting Gaethje, fighting Oliveira twice. Asakura fought for the belt. He lost, but then lost to Tim Elliott in his second fight by submission. So I don't know, but you can't give him another ranked opponent. I just don't think that's fair for anyone in the rankings at this point. You got to give him someone, maybe have him fight against someone that comes off the contender series in a debut fight.
You
I
could put
just
him back on the contender series.
that's yeah, that is an option too, where you
Yeah.
could get him on the Ultimate Fighter. Um, who knows? Maybe they'll get him on the Ultimate Fighter. I want Sean Strickland as a coach for that. That's my goal within the next year once he comes off suspension.
He'd
But
be getting another suspension for that, but
yeah, moving on, we talked a little bit about UFC Fight Night that we just saw with Imavov versus Berhalio. Imavov beating Berhalio. Rufi also lost to BSD. Paul Craig unfortunately retired. Um, Rest in peace. And there was also the fight night before that with Johnny Walker going out and beating Zhang Mingyang. Aljo beat Brian Ortega. Sergey, unfortunately, beat Waldo Cortez Acosta, who was the next heavyweight champion of the world. If there's anything in between that you want to talk about with those two fight nights before we move on, then we can talk about that right now. But I don't think I have too much to talk about besides those ones.
I got one fight from the Macau card is Charles Energy Johnson, another KO. He KO'd Joshua Van. He KO'd Lonair Kavanaugh is one of my favorite flyweight prospects. And he got destroyed, flatlined by Charles Johnson. And that's a guy who's always been at the bottom of the rankings that give him he's a prospect killer. I want to see them help him out, make a run. He said he was broke before that fight, and he's
Hmm.
flatlining their best fighter. So that's just a name to look out for in the flyweight division. And then last week, I was very surprised to see BSD dominate like he did. He's an incredible wrestler, and people kind of forget that when you look at the Poirier fight, where he was just kind of swinging and throwing, and he got dropped himself. But Rufi and Barajo are the two fighting nerds I have never thought were good. Knocking out Bobby Green is like, that's not anybody could do that. You could like touch him in the head, and I think he'd fall over unconscious. So I'm not too impressed with that, but I am
Who is
impressed.
it? Who was
Oh,
it?
well, you call him King Green. I call him
Oh,
Bobby,
yeah.
but King
Okay,
Green
yeah.
is for you. But
Okay.
for me and the viewers at home, Bobby Green.
Hmm.
But BSD, I was respected him. I was shocked how easy he made that look, even though it's Rufy, who's, maybe not as good as people thought. But I mean, BSD, when he fights like that, like, who knows what's next for him? And also, how good is Money Moicano, though, if BSD is looking like that and Moicano obliterated him in one round? But
They're the best in the world.
hey, some could say that. But either way, like people, I mean, I think the fighting nerd hype, I'm not one of those haters that just hates on them, but like Rufy's a ranked fighter, just to remember that. And BSD kind of embarrassed him right there. So I don't know what's next for BSD, but he still looks very, very good. And I guess that's really it. And then I know before 320, we got another week break and then another okay fight night. Like, I don't know, man. Like, not loving where we're at right now, but the good times are almost here.
Yeah. Like we already talked about Diego Lopez versus Silva. Also on that card, we have Jared Gordon is fighting. So is Rob Font. So is Kelvin Gastelum. Um, a lot of good guys on here that we can talk about. Tatiana Suarez as well. Zachary Reese, my boy, doing it for Mexico if he can go out there and win. Um, so if there's anything you want to highlight on this card before we move on to the next, there's I don't know, there's not too much I'm really excited about. Honestly, I probably watch the Canelo fight instead, and I don't blame Dana White for that.
Yeah, I think he kind of realizes what he did here, and he kind of shipped this one in a little bit. Didn't compare last year's Noche to this one. Big difference there. Um, I think I got Bud Crawford, by the way. But
Me too.
yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a great fight. We'll see. But I think Bud is the best boxer outside of Usyk probably in the world right now. But moving ahead,
And JDM.
and JDM, I guess you can count that too. UFC Perth, I believe it is. Reyes Olberg. We have
Uh-huh.
another Tafa co-main, by the way. Like, I don't know how they're doing it. I don't know what blackmail they have. Both brothers are on this card, by the way. I don't know how they're
Yes.
not cut, but if there's some fun fights on that. I know Volk's Prodigy, Colby Thickness, Oban Elliott versus Mikulev is that dude's a demon. Oban might be in a tough fight right there. Navajo Sterling is Izzy's kind of city kickboxing regen. Uh, that's really about it, Tafa Bros. I mean, Reyes, I do love the Reyes resurgence. Is he close to a title shot?
I mean, if he beats Alberg, then I don't see why not. I mean, everyone's saying Alberg would be next, hypothetically, for the title. Is this the number one contender fight? Yeah, I think so, right? Yuri versus Khalil. I guess you could also say that would be. But if Reyes goes out there and finishes Alberg and Yuri and Roundtree, I mean, if Yuri beats Roundtree, then who knows? Because if Pereira beats Ankalaev, Yuri's not going to fight Pereira again unless he does. Um, but I don't know. I think this surprisingly, we're back in a good spot here for light heavyweight. There was a little while where, yes, Pereira was fighting very often, but some of those fights we knew he would go out and win. And then in between that, before Pereira, like kind of in between that, John Jones moving up to heavyweight and him being there. We just had a bunch of different guys there, with your boy Jamal Hill being champion. So that kind of showed how well the division was at that point. Who did with the Twitter finger yearly award from us? I'm not sure if he's got that yet in the mail, but it has been 9 months. So hopefully did
Okay.
get to him. Um, but yeah, I mean, between Magomed versus Pereira, then we have Yuri versus Khalil, then Olberg versus Reyes. I think there's a lot of interesting fights here, and I think this division is back in a very good place, no matter what happens. Because if Magomed beats Pereira, I do want to see Magomed versus Yuri. I would want to see Magomed versus Khalil Roundtree or versus Dominic Reyes if he wins or Ulberg. Like I think we're in a good spot no matter what happens. And like I said, if Pereira wins, Pereira versus Dominic Reyes, if we somehow got that for the title, that would just be an absolute aura fest right there. And even if we saw a Khalil Roundtree rematch, that would be nice. He's never fought Ulberg. That would be interesting. So I think no matter what happens, it'll be a good spot for the division.
Yeah, and 320 it's a loaded card. It's a very loaded card. That's why I'm upset. I'm not too upset about the no pay-per-views for like almost 2 months. It feels like with these breaks as well from fight nights. But Ankalaev versus Pereira. I might be pure cope. I just don't know why I think Pereira is going to do a lot better this time. I don't know. I swear he was hurt or something. I don't know what was going on. He looked so bad. He wasn't engaging. I think he was almost frightened of Ankalaev's power and he was scared of getting dropped or something like that. If you're defending your belt, if you have Alex's reign that he was on, where he was on that run of like I don't know how many fights since the Izzy fight, where he was just killing everybody, you have to go out on your shield. If someone's taking your belt from you, I don't care about CTE. You got to go out there and fight until you get dropped or you drop him. Like I didn't like that. He didn't even get taken down. Uncle was just backing him down against the cage, punching him in the face, and Alex did nothing about it. He lost that kind of I got nothing but the word aura here, but he lost that like energy he had where he felt larger than life and he was scaring people to strike with him. And then Uncle Live just little broed him completely. So I think we could even see Uncle Live mixing it up next fight just to get ahead of Pereira's game plan. But I mean, I think Pereira, if he was just more aggressive, I think he easily could have landed a check hook on Uncle Live. He just wasn't throwing. So I think I'm gonna go with Pereira again.
Yeah, Pereira at plus 185. I think it could be interesting. Maybe he'll be back. I do think, like I just said, the silver lining in this, obviously, if Pereira loses, it would be sad, but there's so many different matchups that we could see from Magomed. Um, the co-main event, Marab versus Corey Sandhagen. I might get some flack for this. I know a lot of people like Sandhagen. I honestly think he's one of the more overrated guys in the UFC. I think Marab absolutely runs through him. I don't think he really struggles too much. And I'm gonna say I think Marab finishes him.
Well, I mean, I don't really disagree. I mean,
He's gonna choke him out.
Marab is that dominant, 100% sure. But I mean, Umar versus Sandhagen was I think a year and a half ago, something like that, a year ago, and Sandhagen looked incredible. I was shocked. He has that YouTube channel, those funny interviews. He has that kind of IQ where people say he's the smartest fighter in the UFC. He has a fan base, which is maybe part of the reason he got the title shot, but. Against Umar, he lost. Like he lost that Umar
Hmm.
fight, and we saw what Marab did to Umar. And
It was not the sorry to interrupt, but
yeah,
the
no,
Marab people that said the Marab Umar fight was close, it was not
no,
close. Marab
no.
beat him by a good amount. I don't want to hear the 3-2. Oh, it could have been 3-2 for Umar. No. Marab beat him by a good amount.
Yeah, Marab just he destroyed Umar. He took away everything he had from him right in front of Khabib. Marab looked incredible in that fight, but Sandhagen is such a well-rounded fighter. He is maybe one of the smartest fighters in all of the UFC, but none of that helps you against Marab's wrestling and cardio. It just won't. So Sandhagen, to give him credit, I bet he's gonna have a great game plan, but I'm not sure I don't know how he beats Marab. I don't like Marab really his holes is like his striking defense, which like O'Malley couldn't even touch him. I'm not really sure what Sandhagen's gonna do. I really disagree with what you're saying. I think Marab's gonna run through another contender, make himself further up the pound for pound list, the GOAT list in the division, and then he's gonna call out someone else. Maybe it's Pantoja, another banger, but I hope Marab stays active. And I haven't checked the odds on it. I know I'm not sure if you have them up, but
Minus 380 Marab plus 300
okay.
Sandhagen.
Okay, that's not crazy. I thought it was gonna be closer, but I think Marab is like, not, to quote Michael Chandler, 9 times out of 10 he wins that fight against Sanhagen.
Yeah, and I think what we're gonna see, Marab wins. Sean O'Malley knocks out Song Yadong. Marab versus Sean O'Malley.
Yep, and then they run it back again and again.
Pure cinema.
Hey, if O'Malley lands that left hook though,
Hey, like
no,
you just said, Marab could win 9 out of 10 times against Sean, but if they fight 10 times, we're getting that belt back.
right? If they physically do fight 10 times, he might win one time. But another light heavyweight fight, Yuri versus Roundtree. You mentioned it. This is gonna be a great fight. And one thing I was just thinking about is Yuri was Alex Pereira before Alex. He was that mysterious like samurai. Instead of Brazil, he was from like the Czech Republic and he's in the woods and caves practicing his like sword skills. And then Alex goes and just like in 2 fights just gives him a ton of brain damage and destroys him. Takes away all the aura he was farming for years and years. But I think this is the fight he gets it back. Khalil, as much as I like him, as he's one of the best Muay Thai practitioners in the UFC, he's kind of built like he's kind of just been like a kind of punching bag recently. Like the Jamal Hill fight, so excited for that on paper. Like, man, that was a boring fight. That was not a good fight at all. And he made Jamal Hill look bad. It didn't look bad, but I think Yuri, I think he knocks out Roundtree. I think we're gonna get old Yuri back, undefeated Yuri, before Alex came along and took everything from him. But I think we're gonna see a great Yuri performance, probably a knockout, but that's gonna be a banger either way to make this card even better.
Yeah, and like you said, I think I've said this before on the podcast. I think if Alex Pereira never existed, Yuri would be one of the best light heavyweight fighters of all time. Obviously can't get past the GOAT. But besides John Jones, I think
Oh, I thought you
he
meant Dom Reyes or Anthony Smith, but okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I think he probably would have ran through anyone in this division, and I don't think anyone beats him in this division besides Pereira. Um, Maybe Magomed goes out there and wrestles him, but I mean, from what we've seen, Yuri goes out there and he starches opponents, but we really haven't seen him get tested in the wrestling before. At least in the past few fights, fighting Pereira twice, that hasn't really mattered. Jamal Hill. I mean, I told you guys during that fight that that was my biggest lock of my life. I would leave the podcast if he lost to Jamal Hill. So obviously, good thing he won that. But I agree with you. I think Yuri does win this fight. And other fights on this card, obviously, we have Josh Emmett on here as well. Abbas Magomedov, Joe Pfeiffer. The undercard, maybe not as exciting as but the main card is very good. There are some exciting fights that I want to see. I want to see Patchy Mix. And they only have 6 prelims right now, so I'm assuming that they're going to add maybe 1 or 2 more fights, considering they don't have any ranked fighters on the prelims, which usually never happens. So I do think they'll probably add 1 or 2 more fights there as well.
Yeah, there's some good ones. It's funny seeing Patchy Mix already. I still remember like 2 years ago when Sean O'Malley was a champ. Patchy Mix was MMA pound for pound above Sean O'Malley on a lot of those nerd website boards. He looks so bad. Like I don't know. It's funny seeing him early prelims, but he's fighting one of the newer signings from it might have been K1 or Octagon maybe, but a Polish guy, Wicklaus. That's gonna be a good fight. Two like newcomers in the UFC relatively for Patchy Mix. And then Ateba Gautier has the best manager in the UFC, taking on Ozzy Diaz, which he's gonna kill. Ateba Gautier from DWCS is one of the best prospects in the UFC. When I first saw him fight, I'm like, holy, this guy's good. He just has to get, he's very young still. He just has to get the actual skills down, polish his game, refine it. But he's kind of, a lot of people say he's like the middleweight Ngannou, and I gotta say, I kind of see it. He's insane, so you don't want to miss that fight, featured prelim. And I will say, Magomedov versus Pfeiffer. Pfeiffer was like destroying Gastelum, like hitting him hard on the chin. Gastelum kept getting up, but I'm still not a fan of him. Like, I don't, he just kind of spams the right hook that more powerful than Ngannou, as he would say. But I'm just not really a huge fan of either of those guys. I think they have kind of a low ceiling, but it's still a banger card overall.
Yeah. I mean, there's also some other fights that were announced. We don't have to go too in depth, obviously, because we'll cover them later. JDM versus Islam and Shevchenko versus Zhang Weili. Um, I mean, both of those fights should be arguably contender for fight of the year. Shevchenko versus Weili, I think, is the best women's MMA fight they could put on right now. Maybe besides Nunes versus Kayla Harrison, but skill-wise, I think Weili versus Shevchenko there's a lot more skill in that one. Obviously, Nunes probably the best women's fighter of all time. She's been off for a little while. We don't really know exactly how good Kayla Harrison is. Obviously, she's been great in the UFC, but this is a fight I've been wanting to see for a long time. I think Zhang Weili wins if she wins this fight. Realistically, could become the best women's fighter of all time. She really is that good and could probably, I mean, some of those flyweights, I think she could go out there and maybe contest against them. JDM versus Islam. We'll see what happens. We got a long time until then that we'll continue to preview this, but I don't think I'm ever going against my boy JDM. And I honestly think he realistically has a shot in this fight. Aspinall versus Gane. We also have Mackenzie Dern versus Yandariba, however you pronounce her name, whatever, for the strawweight championship. Volkov versus Jailton Almeida. Rakic is also fighting on that card. That card is shaping up to be pretty good as well for 321. And then DeRitter versus Hernandez. Oliveira versus Fiziev as well. So we'll preview those more on the next episode. We also have the UFC White House card that was announced. John Jones said he's training 5 times a week. He wants to fight on that card. So maybe we'll see him in a rematch versus Cyril Gane.
Hey, that's gonna be a banger in June. We're gonna get John Jones versus Justin Taffa as the main event, and then McGregor versus Chandler, and then Nate Diaz also comes in. Whole Royal Rumble. It's gonna be a banger. Trump might even go in there. Who knows?
And Junior Tafa too.
Oh, of course, can't forget about him. Just as good as his brother. But
Yeah.
a lot of good stuff coming up. We will see. Um, and I already said it, but I can't wait. I just saw the UFC was posting Bud Crawford versus Canelo over. I haven't seen anything about Noche, their Mexican card with no Mexicans on it. So
Oh, well, Diego Lopez is Mexican.
he's half Mexican. So that's
Yeah, and they also have, you know, David Martinez in the co-main event.
oh, I actually do like David Martinez, but
Rafa Garcia is from Mexico.
oh yes, Rafa Garcia, very good. But I don't
Um,
know. Bud versus
yeah,
Canelo though, that's gonna be a banger fight.
that's
And
their
that's gonna
that's their
say a lot
Mexican
about
right
boxing.
there. That's
Yeah,
the
that
UFC's
is.
Mexican for
They
Noche.
should have put that on Noche at the same place.
They
Versus, yeah.
they could have just, I mean, if we're talking about the MMA, Misfits just had their event where they had boxing and an MMA at the end. Tony Ferguson came back, defeated Salt
Hey,
Poppy, add that
Dana,
to his record.
call him up, Dana. He's back.
And
Ilya versus Tony.
Tony comes back, Dylan Danis comes back for the White House card.
Mm,
We got a lot to look forward to.
perfect. Well, we will see you guys at the next episode of OTO with 320. Talking about that. I cannot wait to see how that goes. Pereira, Sandhagen, let's go. No, not really Sandhagen, but
Yeah, so we will be seeing you guys in probably about a month from now. That'll be on October 4th, so it'll be a little bit until then. But until then, we'll see you guys in the next one.